Good morning, heart and soul. Thank you for being with us both in the sanctuary this morning as well as for tuning in with us. And I'm going to invite you, those of you who are tuning in and hanging out, to please come in because there's a certain activity and energy that is happening here that I don't want you to miss, and you won't know it until you get here, frankly. So the only way to do it is to be here. So if that's a possibility, please join us. Quarterly, we as the Leadership Council have made a decision. This is a practice that we used to have years ago, and then certainly, we blame everything on COVID. And so I'm just going to say COVID. But what we are committed to doing this year and going forward is to acknowledge and discern and declare a sacred service champion. And so I'm going to ask our president of the Leadership Council, Sheila Lewis, to join me here as we reveal and declare our newest sacred service champion for this quarter. So this is for third quarter. And so it is Sally Dew. So Sally, if you would join us. Sally Dew is an active, engaged, and invested heart and soul member. And this is an exciting moment because I was surprised that Sally became a member last year. But however, has been in sacred service longer than that. So that was my surprise, actually. Sally, come stand. So that she has participated, been a part of our welcome circle as a greeter and part of Team Octopi, as well as the website. And let me just take a moment to... She also, yes, she and her sister, who have 2 plus 2, have come to the rescue, frankly, of Heart and Soul Center of Light in completely, I was going to say refurbishing, redoing our website. And if you haven't been there, you need to go. It's a proud moment for Heart and Soul. And Sally already knows, because I feel like I should always start my request with an apology because it is forever increasing. And because we have this amazing event coming up, Sally has been our go-to person for our branding for the event and just holding all of the images and helping us to create a vision of imagery that truly reflects who we are. So this is my personal thank you for the warmth and willingness that you meet every request of mine, and they are numerous. Oh, Lord, I am tired of me. So just thank you so very, very, very much. And so in honor of this, there is a certificate.
And the certificate reads, "The Leadership Council and the Ignite Leadership, on behalf of Heart and Soul members, extend our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to Sally Dew. In recognition of your active engagement and investment, Heart and Soul proudly recognizes you as our 2025 Quarter 3 Sacred Service Volunteer."
And this is our Sacred Service celebration gift to you. So, Sacred Service champion gift to you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. You know, we are so grateful to all of our those who are active in sacred service. And this is also an invitation to, if you're not already active, to please get active. It's a volunteer organization, so just about everything you see that happens is done by folks who are volunteering. More and more, we have had to begin, for example, we now have a cleaning service. That used to be done by volunteers who were willing to come in. It just got to be so uneven that I know y'all don't want to come in here and have me just tell you why it's not clean. And so instead, we are now paying a cleaning service. And we're not committed that that has to be forever. There could be a shift if there are folks who are willing to have a bit of a rotation and help us in that way. So this is my shout out to those of you who are already in sacred service. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those who are willing to do a little something more, thank you in advance for your willingness to support in whatever way you are willing. Thank you. I want to acknowledge Reverend Dr. Joan Stedman. Her farewell gala, she is retiring. I met Reverend Joan when she was candidating for the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. I'm not even sure it was Oakland Center for Spiritual Living at the time. It was First Church of Religious Science when she was candidating. And she ultimately became my practitioner for many, many years. And then when she left Oakland Center, she founded the Agape Bay Area, and that's where she is now, and she's retiring, I believe, the end of November. It might be through the end of the year that she's there. So they have a farewell gala that is happening, pardon me, Friday, November 21st at 6:30 at Oakland Center. And so I wanted to make sure you knew that in case you wanted to support that effort. Thank you for being open to that. I just want to remind you that next Sunday is our 16th anniversary Sunday. So we will be, if you're at home now, rest up because we want you to be here next Sunday. And I want to do a shout out to Valerie Trout, who has stepped up to ensure that our anniversary choir will be a part of the service and will be gifting us, I think, about 4 different songs. And so I am just so grateful. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. And thank you for those of you who are showing up as part of it. I'm going to be singing along and carrying on, but you know you don't want me on mic singing. So I also want to remind you that tickets are on sale for our 16th anniversary musical review. We have finally landed on what it is best to call it. It has been an evolution. And so that is on Saturday, November 15th, and it is at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. And I just, for the first time, want to share with you the Unbroken musicians, the Tammy L. Hall Quartet. It's Tammy on piano, it's Ashley Jemison on saxophone, and can I tell you that this young sister plays the heck out of this horn. You want to be here for nothing else. Gary Brown is on bass, and Dezon Claiborne is on drums for that. So it's going to be an exciting time. Go ahead, please get your tickets early. Thank you. Also, today, Sheila, if you'll join me again, please. Today just happens to be, coincidentally, Reverend Jack Elliott's 40th year in ministry. So today is his anniversary, and we are celebrating. So what I can tell you for sure is that I have been there since the beginning, although my count is more like 20, but that's so that my age will add up properly. If I do this 40 years with him, then my age thing, it gets weird, and it requires an asterisk. So it's hard. I wish you hadn't done this, Jack, frankly. But look, at the very beginning, when he started Fellowship in Light, that was my first sermon ever. I still have the program somewhere, and I just could not pull it together to go find which box it's stored in. But I kept that program, I think because I thought it was probably going to be my only sermon. I had not planned this career. I had not planned this as how it would evolve. I thought, that was good. Thank you for inviting me to do that. I enjoyed that, and I filed that bad boy away. And Jack, I would just say, look at us now. So, Jack, if you'll join us up front, please. So he began with Fellowship in Light in 1985, and then Gateway Christian Church, which is the Disciples of Christ Church, and then, of course, being a founding part of Heart and Soul Center of Light, which you know because I've shared with you many times. I'm not clear what would have evolved if Jack had not been my partner in so many things. And especially our spiritual journey. If we had not been on this spiritual journey together so that we would partner in the very development of the vision, I'm not clear we'd be here. That's important for me to say out loud, that he is as much a part of this as I. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Thank you. And let me just say that what I have learned, because I've been putting things together in print, and you'll see on the screen that we obviously have not been keeping him busy enough. Because he had enough extra energy to found the Elder Pride as a focus ministry, and to also be the interim minister at the Visalia CSL. So we really missed the ball on that you just had all kind of extra time to be a gift to so many and to continue to do that. And so what I'd like to do is our beloved Dr. Sonny Cantrell Smith, who is the elected spiritual leader for Centers for Spiritual Living, sent this to me regarding Reverend Jack's 40 years of service. She writes, "Dear Reverend Jack Elliott, on behalf of the entire Centers for Spiritual Living global community, I extend my heartfelt congratulations and deepest gratitude as we celebrate your remarkable 40 years in ministry. This milestone is not only a testament to your steadfast dedication, but also a radiant reflection of spirit expressing through you. A life devoted to love, truth, and the awakening of humanity." She writes, "For decades, you have embodied the essence of our shared vision, living as one global family. Through your wisdom, compassion, and leadership, you have guided countless souls to recognize their divine nature and to live from that sacred awareness of interconnectedness. Your ministry has reminded us all that every being, human, animal, tree, and ocean is part of the infinite tapestry of life, woven together by the thread of divine love. In your presence, many have discovered the courage to live authentically, to serve selflessly, and to honor the sacredness in all things. You have stood as a living example of Ernest Holmes' timeless words. There is a spirit of universal truth, which is the underlying cause of all being. You have shown us the truth, not merely through teaching, but through your daily acts of kindness, your reverent listening, and your unwavering belief in the good that flows through all creation." She closes by saying, "With profound respect and love, we honor you, Reverend Jack Elliott, for 40 years of faithful service, a lifetime devoted to truth, and for your unwavering commitment to growing our global family through love and devotion. And she signs it peace and blessings. Dr. Sunny Cantrell Smith, our CSL spiritual leader.
If I can read it without the...
I'm going to take it out of this, I think. Let me do it. You take that.
So I always feel not only honored but blessed to always be back at Heart and Soul physically in this space, to be with family, you all, and to stand between these two giants is really beyond a gift. It is a blessing. There's an energy, there's a force right here on this stage right now, and I'm a part of it, and I'm grateful for that. And let me share what we have for you, Reverend Jack. A certificate of recognition, 40 years in ministry, presented to Reverend Jack Elliott. On behalf of the entire Heart and Soul Center of Light community of ministers, practitioners, and members, thank you for your 16 years of dedication to Heart and Soul. Today, we celebrate your significant achievement of 40 years in ministry and spiritual leadership. Your ministry, enthusiastic support, and inspiration remind us of our greatest yet to be. Your imprint on Heart and Soul is immeasurable. We see you, we love you, we thank God for you. And so it is. You want to hold that for a minute? And as is a tradition here at Heart and Soul, we like to give a love offering in acknowledgement of the big things that happen here. And so, on behalf of our Heart and Soul Leadership Council, our ministers, and our practitioners, is a love offering for you in a generous amount that isn't even close to how we feel about you. But we certainly hope that you'll do something with this grand check.
Oh, okay. I'll get my VIP ticket.
In the amount of $2,300.
Oh, wow. My goodness.
And I know your hand is out for that one.
Absolutely.
And I will help you down with all of that.
All right. You go first.
Okay.
And thank you.
I am darting off. Taylor United Methodist Church is celebrating this month their 104th year. And so this is their Founders Month, and I am their speaker today. And so I am darting off, even as we invite Takia and Thomas to move our service forward. I am so grateful that Reverend Jack, on this anniversary, on his 40th anniversary, is also our speaker.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not summer and winter, springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars and their courses above. Join with all nature in manifold witness thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness and mercy and love. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Oh, you're so worthy. Oh, I don't know why, but great is thy faithfulness and mercy and mercy and love. Great is thy faithfulness. Yes, great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness and mercy, mercy and love. Great is thy faithfulness. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. In mercy and love. So grateful.
Thank you, Thomas and Takia. That song, knew that we were going to be doing it today, just by the title. It's like, oh, okay, great is thy faithfulness. And then I heard it, and it took me back to my childhood, because that is one I've heard so many times in my life. And great is my faithfulness to be standing right here, right now. I'm reminded of so many things, and the first thing that I want to say, and I can't talk too much about it because I would get too emotional about it, is my dear beloved friend, the Reverend Dr. Andrea Earl. I wouldn't be standing here today were it not for her devotion and her friendship. And it's divinely inspired because our paths would have never crossed had it not been by divine intention. So there's a part of me that asks your indulgence today because in honor of my 40th anniversary, I need to reminisce a little bit. And a part of it came to my mind when Damali was doing the introductions, and Reverend Jack Elliott, the chair of the Heart and Soul, and I thought, that's a tenth of what I do. And what is so ironic about that? And this is what I want to say about that. 40 years ago, nobody wanted me to do this. No one felt that I was qualified to do this. No one thought that I should do this, except for my best friend, Gary Stroller, and my other best friend, Andrea Earl. And they gave me, because they had their hand at my back, the courage to go out and do something that I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I want you to indulge me for a moment. Stand up. And what I want you to do is pivot 45 degrees. And I want you to see something that you may not have noticed before. Perhaps it's the portrait of Harriet Tubman. Perhaps it's the torch lamps above the pillars. Perhaps you're seeing someone you haven't seen in a while. Now I want you to pivot one more time, another 45 degrees towards the back of the room. And I want you to see something that you had no idea that was back there. Yeah. Something that was first imagined and then manifested. And now pivot one more time. And yet again, notice something that you had never noticed before. Perhaps it's the teaching symbol. Perhaps it's the letter of acknowledgement celebrating our 15th anniversary. It's like, I didn't even know that was there. I got to go look at that later. And it was right here all along. Now pivot finally back to the front. And notice something that you hadn't noticed before. The love and the decorations, the signage, the electronics that take us out into the cyberspace. Go ahead and have a seat. The title of my talk today is To Pivot. And I wanted you to have a direct experience of what it is to be required to pivot. And oftentimes it's just an invitation from someone that we trust to be willing to see things a slightly different way. And when I looked back on my ministry, one of the things that I became aware of over these past 40 years is that the real gift is in the pivot. And the other thing that came really aware to me, there is a Joseph Campbell quote that I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, and I know you're familiar with it, but the quote is, You must be willing to give up the life you planned in order to live the life you were called to live. Now, here's what I want you to understand. That does not mean to not have a plan. Because you cannot pivot without knowing where you're standing in the plan that you're in. So 40 years ago, Terry Cole Whitaker was doing what we do, and I have mentioned this before, at the Cathedral Hill Hotel in San Francisco. Reverend D. Jacqueline was there, Tyrone was there, Reverend Andriette and I were there, and we were taking all the classes. We were doing everything. And finally, for me in my life, I had found that perfect combination of theology, psychology, and religion. It all came together in this teaching called The Science of Mind. And I wanted more of it. And I got 95% of the way there to where I was to be the last named practitioner with Terry Cole Whitaker Ministries. And she said, I'm not doing this anymore. It's not about titles. I'm not ordaining anyone. I'm not licensing anyone. I'm not doing this anymore. And I thought, isn't that a reflection of my life? I get to about 95% of what I want to manifest in my life, and then life happens. Now, as we learned this past summer, I could live in the realm of look at what happened to me. But for whatever reason, I decided to do something different. Maybe it was that theatrical experience within me. Maybe it was, but I said, I can do it. And so I'm calling numbers. I look in the yellow pages. California Institute of Religious Science, San Francisco, they're in San Francisco. Hello. I talked to Reverend Daniel Pursuti and I said, here's what happened to me, and I'm not willing to be done. And he said, oh, that's great. I know Terry. I'll ordain you. And I had the audacity to say at 32 years of age, great, I'll start a church. Because I know 400 and some odd people that just were in this class with me that will be more than willing to come over to be a part of what I want to do. So I got my own 501c3, I got the nonprofit status, and I rented a stage at the California Women's Club on Clay Street in San Francisco. And we started doing church. And as Reverend Doctor said, she did one of the sermons. She was right there. Gary was right there. And a lot of those people, about 125 of those folks from Terry Cole Whitaker came. And I got to have my experience of working with 400 or 125 pissed off people that Terry Cole Whitaker had stopped. Because when she stopped, she also left town. And so I was the one to get to hear how angry they were. How do we get our money back for classes and all that? And then I started to notice after those folks worked through their grief and they kind of went away, a lot of the folks that were left were folks in the LGBTQ plus community. And that was okay. We were still doing what we're doing. And then this pandemic hit. And I started to hear stories of people whose ministers wouldn't officiate their funerals, where funeral homes wouldn't touch their bodies, where in not hospice situations, but nursing homes would not take them when they needed hospice care or that care at the end of their life. And so I just said, okay, this must be why I was called to ministry, because I can do these funerals, I can do these memorial services, I can lift up these lives of these folks. And so I went about doing it, and one of the things that I love about this teaching, once you set your intention, the universe conspires to make it happen and to put the right people in the right place. And so one of the things that happened, I met these two women by the name of Vera Ginsburg and Marcia Gennard, and the three of us started the Gennard AIDS Foundation. Because what we were noticing is that if the insurance company could find a way not to pay it, they'd not pay it. If Social Security could get out of paying the disability, they'd get out of paying it. And so what we did is we decided to create a nonprofit, my second nonprofit, to pay for anything that nobody else would pay for. In 10 short years, we raised over $1 million. And one of our partners was Contra Costa County Department of Health, whereas the first time, not the first time, but one of the times when I got there and saw that Suzette Celeste was working there, I thought, look at God being God. So we paid for parents to fly to be with their loved ones. We paid for in-home care. We paid for dental work. We paid for vision care. And we invested our money that we got to do it. We invested so well that we got to continue that on for 10 more years. And I thought, okay, I had a plan. I was going to do this church called Fellowship and Light, but really I pivoted. This is what God called me to do, and I'm fine with being here and doing this. And at that same time, I was working at the VA Medical Center in Palo Alto, California. And my job was the longest title I've ever had in my life. I worked for the Department of Psychology, and I was the chief of vocational rehabilitation and educational therapy. My job was to convince a veteran that was 100% getting a disabled pension of about $3,300 a month to give that up and go back to work. That was my task. I was blessed. Here's how I was blessed. We were in the Silicon Valley. We were across the road on Page Mill Road from this little startup company from Apple Computer who wanted to train people how to create circuits and computer chips. Let's just say at the end of my second year, I had the most successful vocational rehabilitation program within the VA Medical Center system. But then I noticed one day as I was walking to my office, I had to walk past the pharmacy where a lot of veterans came to pick up their medicine. And one of the things that is typical within the VA medical system is that you go once a month to pick up your medication. Well, I got to noticing that some people were coming every Friday. And I happened to also simultaneously notice that they seemed to be gay men. So I went to the chief of staff and I said, help me to understand why these veterans have to come every Friday to get their medication, but other veterans only have to come once a month. And he says, oh, Jack, they have AIDS. AZT is expensive. We're not going to give them a month's worth of medication when they're just going to die. And I said, refer them to my program. Jack, no, you misunderstood. They're dying. Refer them to my program. And again, I had to pivot. I didn't know what I was going to do with them once they came to my program, but I finally convinced the chief of staff of the VA hospital to give me 30 patients to work with. And there were 60 going through the pharmacy, and we made a deal that I would take 30 and he would prove himself right with the other 30. Of course, a year later, my 30 were still alive. And a part of it was because I empowered them to do what they had always wanted to do in their life. They became photographers. They became painters. They became singers. They tapped into their creative self using the same intentional principles of the science of mind in a secular way. And simultaneously, and at that same time, as we say here, my beloved best friend Gary made his transition from AIDS. And one of the things that I was able to do from the money that I received from his estate was I started the Wellness Program Work Center in Pleasant Hill. We did what we did at the VA out in the community, where we could work with anyone that came through the county health department in Contra Costa County to help them do the same thing. My third nonprofit. Well, here's the good news. After about 2 or 3 years, AIDS no longer was a death sentence. People were starting to adapt. They were starting to live longer. The medication was working. And many of those folks were doing something that they'd always wanted to do in their life, which was a great calling, a great thing. But, it was happening. And my mom made her transition. And I decided I need a break. I need a break. So in the fall of '98, I decided that I was going to take a break. And then I got a phone call. The minister that had officiated my mother's funeral in Winchester, Indiana, decided he was going to do a nice thing, and he called the minister in Concord, California, to check up on me, to be there because he couldn't really be there the way that he would want to be. So I got a call from Barbara Blaisdell, who was the senior minister of First Christian Church in Concord. And she goes, let me take you to lunch. And so we went to lunch, and we talked about ministry. We talked about all the stuff that I'd done and all that kind of thing. And she goes, I'd love for you to come to church. And I said, okay, I'll come, but I'm only going to be a congregant. 3 weeks later, when I took to the pulpit for the first time, I realized that I had to pivot one more time. And so for a couple of years, probably through 2002, I served First Christian Church of Concord, California, as a staff minister, part of their ecclesiastical team. And they fully recognized my ordination and said, we'd love to have you come do this thing here with us. What I didn't know is Barbara's husband was the president of the Northern California region for the Disciples of Christ Christian Church. And so after one Sunday service, he came to me and he goes, okay, you live in Tracy, right? I go, yes, I live in Tracy. He goes, we used to have a church in Tracy. Nobody seems to know what happened to the church in Tracy. But if we gave you $25,000, would you go back and start the church in Tracy again for us? So I said yes. And I went and I got my fourth 501c3, filed all the paperwork with the IRS, and founded Gateway Christian Church. Now, their only requirement for supporting that ministry, which would happen in Pleasant Hill, in Concord, would be that by the end of 3 years, we needed to have 75 members. At the end of 3 years, we had 72. Well, Jack, we're sorry, but we're going to bring this community together with the Livermore community. And that minister there, well, she has more seniority. I had to pivot. Now, what I didn't know, what I did not understand is I didn't need to go get that fourth 501c3 nonprofit status because I was technically under the umbrella of the regional Disciples of Christ 501c3. And so when I went to give it to, well, we don't need that. We don't need, yeah, oh, okay. And then that weekend, Andriette came out to Tracy for the weekend. And she said, you know, I'm kind of pregnant with a new idea. I'm thinking of leaving East Bay and starting a church. And would you support me in that? Would you help me do that? And I said, not only will I help you, I'll go with you. And I happen to have a 501c3. So we have to be willing to let go of the plan in order to live the life that we were called. Now, not unlike the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, we really didn't need that one either because we were under the umbrella United Centers for Spiritual Living. But we were prepared. We had a backup plan. So then a few years later, long about 2015, Reverend Doctor and I were in a all-day Saturday retreat and meeting kind of thing. And, we're talking, we're, very businessy kind of thing. And we were supporting, another organization and what they needed to do next. And I just made the comment, I think they need an interim minister. And so folks kind of listened to that. And we went ahead and did what we did. But afterwards, the guy who was the spiritual leader, Steve Burton of Centers for Spiritual Living, came up to me and he says, you know about this interim thing? And I said, yes. I said, not only do I know about it in ministry, I'm very familiar with it in the secular world because I know that nobody is successful being the person who follows the person. That there needs to be a bridge. There needs to be someone with a very specific set of skills to come in and take over that. And he goes, so there's Santa Cruz and there's Fresno. Which would you be willing to go to? Somehow I said Fresno. I don't know why I said Fresno. Maybe it's because I had never been to Fresno. I knew I could always go to Santa Cruz, but I would have to be paid to go to Fresno. And so I went to Fresno in 2016 as the interim minister for CSL Fresno. Now, one of the things that is often true in ministry is sometimes you are called to be the one to let them know that it's time to call a thing good and done. And to have a plan for doing that. The community had aged out. The neighborhood had changed drastically. And they even came to me and said, we can't pay you the money that we promised you. But we have this little house that we were going to use for our teen ministry. What if we signed the deed of that house over to you in lieu of your compensation? I stand here today, the proud owner of 2 homes, fully paid for, none of which did I have to pay for in my life. And it was because I was willing to let go of the plan to live the life. Now, that also empowered me to be audacious enough to launch this thing called Elder Pride, a focused ministry for folks over 60 and those who love them, or in other words, those that didn't want to admit they were over 60, to be a part of a focused ministry serving the LGBTQ plus community and supporting them to age forward with grace and ease. We started that at Heart and Soul on 42nd Street in January 2020. 75 people came to our first conference. It was going to be an annual conference kind of thing. And then the pandemic hit. Now, here's what's interesting about this pandemic called COVID. For those of us that had survived the first pandemic known as AIDS, having to deal with another pandemic was a bridge too far. I didn't survive that to go through this again. Suddenly, what I thought was Elder Pride's mission shifted to be there to find ways to support people through a second pandemic, a second experience of being isolated and marginalized. And we did it. And it started with a daily phone call on Zoom. 20 to 25 people would drop in every day at 4 o'clock to check in with one another. You okay? You doing okay today? What's your plan for today? Now, for about a year, that was necessary because that was about how long that pandemic happened. I'm here to tell you that group of people met for 4.5 years. And they still check in with one another every day via text. They just upped their game of technology. And it's like, okay, I see God. This is what I was called to do. Now, one of those folks, of course, that was my 5th nonprofit, of course, if you're not counting yet. One of the folks in Elder Pride was this wonderful woman by the name of Gwen Ballantyne. And so she was going through our program and taking some of our classes, and she said, you know, my spiritual center is really struggling. We cannot get anyone to come and be our minister. And they had gone through the process with the Centers for Spiritual Living. It's called co-creation process, where you announce you have an open pulpit and they do a search for candidates. And when they heard that it was in Visalia, no one wanted to go. And I was sharing that with the Reverend Doctor, and she goes, you could do it. Why don't you do that? You could do it. You've learned to do this thing virtually. You could do it. Maybe go once a month. Now, don't let go of anything you're doing here. But you should do that. And I'm 71 years old, and I can't drive anymore. But okay. Because if anything, I've learned to be obedient to the Reverend Dr. Andrea Earl. And secondly, to Spirit. So there's a little photo that's circling around somewhere in Slide World of the folks from CSL Visalia waving at you all because they were a part of the celebration last Sunday, kicking off my 40th anniversary. And so my commitment to them is they have me as their spiritual leader through the end of 2026. And we're going to figure out a way to make it all work and to get it all done. Because life is about the pivot. Life is about the pivot. As we age, we pivot. Sometimes we have to pivot. You know, I am glad that if there had to be a time in my life when I lost my sight, that it would be now, because there's so much technology to support me. I have a cool pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses that I can put on, and I can say, Meta, what am I looking at? Read me the text. And they'll just read me what is right in front of me. And it's like, okay, I can do this thing. I miss driving. I was a super commuter. I love my car. But it's this opportunity. You've got to be willing to let go of the plan for what you were called to do. Now, one thing that I'm very aware of, and this last year has kind of like brought this to me on the forefront, is you've got to do what feeds you as well. I have had a life of being in service. It's what I was taught to do from that first Sunday school class when I was 5, and I was taught Matthew 25, you feed the hungry, you give shelter to those who need shelter, you visit those imprisoned, and you care for the sick. I've lived my life doing that and finding a way to do that. But I also love storytelling. And I also love playwriting. And so there is a slide that should come up. I have just finished my third play called 577 Terrace Lane. And I want to bring some folks together in 2026, not to do readers theater. Well, I love me some readers theater. I want to see some folks acting some stuff out. And so I've got one more play in me. And that's what I do for balance. So here's what I want to say. Have a plan, be willing to pivot, and do something that you love doing even when no one else is around. And that's how you tap in to what Ernest Holmes calls the pattern of perfection. I want you to think about that. Life is already perfect if we surrender to it. Life is already, if you think about it right now, you are moving at over 1,000 miles an hour. That's how fast the earth is turning. But because we're all turning at 1,000 plus miles per hour, we can do it like nothing's happening. But if it slowed down a millisecond or speeded up a millisecond, we would be propelled off of this planet. That's how perfect our universe is. Our universe gives us just enough oxygen, just enough carbon, just enough protection from the sun that we can grow the food that sustains us, breathe the air that supports us, and live the life that we were called to live. That's perfection. Can you not imagine God, Spirit, the divine, saying, I gave you perfection. What have you done with it? So we must be called to action to understand, since we have been given this gift, what is ours to do with it? Here's what I want to leave you with today. Others are watching you. They are watching how you transcend a time such as this. They may offer a quirky little response. Oh, that little science of mine, yeah. I'm going to work my get into heaven plan. I'm going to go right over here to the Baptist church and do what I need to do, just in case. but they're watching you. Because they want to see that you can be joyous even while there's chaos around you. That you can entertain the concept of peace even when the world is showing no examples of that. Because you are the one that knows that it's an inside-out job. You know, in our Essential Earnest class last week, one of our students was talking about their grandmother and how she survived chaos and how she, you know, would put out an affirmation even though she may not have called it an affirmation that she was putting out. But her response to everything was, it's going to work out all right. It's going to work out all right. And this student offered the idea, it's like whenever I turn on the news and I hear they tore down what? It's going to be all right. When they did what? It's going to be all right. So our call to action is to proclaim loud and clear, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And if enough of us keep saying that, that tipping point will happen, and it is going to manifest that it's going to be all right, especially if we are willing to pivot and give up the plan that we had in order to live the life that we were called to live. Thank you very much.
In my pain, there inside my weakness is the seed of something greater in me, and the shame of not choosing higher and all the disappointing moments fade into God, and no mistakes have been made in God. All the ways that we seem to fail in God, all fade. It all fades into God. No choice, prisoner of anguish in a jail of I'm so lonely, a jail of all is lost, but the stars are shining to remind us the seed will need the darkness to change into new life, and no mistakes have been made in God. All the ways that we seem to fail in God, all fade. It all fades into God. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. In God is the gravity that holds me together. In God is the orbit in which I am spinning. I see the stars and I remember to remember inside my pain is Inside my pain is the seed of my strength.